Okay.
And then can everyone see my screen here where it says basic tools for data science?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this size good enough for everyone if I keep it like this?
Yeah, looks good.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So again, hello, I'm Amanda Hidalgo. Thanks for joining today. Today we're going to talk about the basic tools for data science with Python. So a little bit about myself. I'm a current data analyst with some communities. Actually, starting next week, I'll be working as a data engineer through Hartford Insurance. So I'm excited for that opportunity to grow my technical skills. I have a bachelor's degree in computer science, and I'm continuing my education through Colorado State University, studying artificial intelligence and machine learning. Bottom line, what that means is that I am a Python, data science, machine learning enthusiast. I'm still growing those technical skills, as I said. Most of my experience with analytics right now comes from a background with working with business users, forming requirements, looking at like business processes, especially sales execution, and doing a lot of massaging data through pulling the raw data into CSV Excel formats, getting that into business intelligence tools. So what I've done myself through boot camps and through college is I've tried to, you know, bridge that gap between the Excel-based analysis into Python. So what we're going to go over today, it's not heavy code based, but it's more the platforms and avenues and resources that I found to help kind of get that analysis deeper into more advanced machine learning, to help provide you all with some basic building blocks. And then maybe later next year, I can circle back with what I've learned in this new engineering role. But I'm looking forward to learning with the community. So what is data science, right? There's a story that I read a while ago in a data science book that I really like telling. So back in 2004, I believe there was a hurricane. It was hurricane season in Florida, and Walmart had just started having all this new big data and started analyzing it. And they decided to do it for this hurricane season to see what trends they could find, right? So you have your basic things that you know, right? We're going to need, you know, extra water bottles. We're going to need blankets, probably different things like that. But what I think defines data science and something that you would think to is that they found that strawberry Pop-Tart sales like increased massively during hurricane season. So that's a kind of a fun way to think about it. It's not always the things that we know that are right in front of our faces that we can kind of put together. Data science helps find those like outliers, anomalies, those things that we may not be thinking day to day, right? And it's kind of comes through with this life cycle process that you see here with capturing the data, maintaining it, processing it, analyzing it, and then ultimately sharing it. So one example that I give for this data science process is by retrieving sales data. So maybe capturing that includes looking at a CRM tool and having that data pooled into a data lake in a cloud environment, maintaining it, then taking the data lake information, organizing it into a data warehouse, then processing it. Maybe an engineer comes in and creates a view from said table in SQL. Analyzing it, you have your analyst that comes in and performs those queries, maybe additional calculations based on a business problem. And then the final step, sharing that. So you have that analyst or engineer creating reports or charts and then sharing that with additional business users. So any question off the bat as to what data science is so far? Great. I should say, feel free to jump in with any questions, interjections, comments at any time. Again, I'm still learning, so if I misspeak on something, definitely welcome any expertise on this. So Jupyter, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so yeah, I'm just kind of curious. So because I'm kind of new to it, because like, well, I have a database background with SQL and stuff like that. I have an MIS degree. So I didn't know about the whole like pure the data science using Python. So I was just looking at it through Code Academy and a few things. So I guess kind of to ask, like, what's the difference between doing data science with Python versus SQL and stuff like that? Just sorry.
It's, you know, at least in my experience, what I found, data science, it almost, that term is so new, right? It kind of depends on the audience, because I've spoken to some stakeholders that think data science, that they've seen things done in Excel maybe and thrown into Tableau and they go, well, that's data science, right? And then other people are looking way more advanced machine learning and maybe you won't even term it artificial intelligence, right? It's just machine learning. So to me, at least in my experience, that definition has kind of varied. I would say that parts of the process fit into SQL, obviously, with like querying that data, processing it again with taking what's in a tabular format into views. So I don't have a solid answer. Maybe does anyone else on the call have a better answer for Andrew regarding that? If not, we'll post it and we'll get back to you for sure.
Hey, Amanda, Mark also, I think that was a good answer. I mean, I think SQL is part of the storing of the data, right? Mark also had a question though on what a data lake is.
Yeah, so very high level, to my understanding, what a data lake is it's just pooling all that raw data, right? So let's say you have a lot of disparate systems right now, before getting into your main data warehouse. And I'm mainly thinking like a cloud environment like Azure. So if you're pulling from like Salesforce, right, and then NetSuite, Oracle, and you're putting everything into your Azure cloud, usually the first stop is like a data lake that has all that raw, unorganized, like mess of a data. And then from there, that's when you start organizing it into your data sets and per business units or functions or whatnot into your warehouse. Does anyone like to add on to that?
So is it more like big data?
To my understanding, yes.
Thanks,
Any other
Amanda.
questions? Okay. So getting into Jupyter Notebook. So this was my first stop when it came to learning Python. I find Jupyter Notebook super user-friendly. It's actually mainly used, it's widely used for communicating with non-technical team members just because you can easily put your notes in like text format and then also have that code underneath. And a little fun fact, what Jupyter comes from is the first three programming languages that it was defined by, Julia, Python, and R. Most of you have probably heard of Python and R. Julia was also a computation-based programming language that uses like C, C++ to get the speed of those computations with the ease of Python. So it's not something I'm personally familiar with, but now you know some more information. You will also see on these slides on the bottom left-hand corner some little callouts. So this is actually a link if it's underlined. There's a Jupyter Notebook tutorial through DataCamp that's really good and walks you through how to install it. They do recommend doing that through Anaconda, which we'll get into. And then there's also this little cheat sheet that I'll include with the resources afterwards. So going ahead and pulling up Jupyter Notebook, I think the best way to do it is just to get into it. Give me a second here. And when you first pull up Jupyter Notebook, it actually runs, as you'll see up here in the web browser, it's a locally hosted server. So this is actually all just on your computer. I see my files here very similar to how I would see them on my computer and my C drive under users. And you can really organize this however you want to. It's very user-friendly. Right now, just to show you how to start a notebook, when you pull this up, you just hit new. And I'm going to do a Python file. And this is your main page. So to start, I'll start by renaming my workbook, maybe just something like test workbook. Very user-friendly. Your dropdown right here is going to run this cell depending on what input you want to add. So these gray boxes again are called cells. You can put code in, so a simple print hello world, right? And if you do a shift enter, you can see it executed that and it gives your output. You can also put text in, as I said. You can either use heading or markdown. They're both the same. It's just heading starts with that hashtag for the headers. So you can have this and say, you know, this is a title, right? And same thing. So you have these up and down arrows that can be used to move these cells around. Again, very straightforward. This plus inserts new cells. You can cut cells, copy, paste them. So it runs very similar to like a Word document in a way, right? So again, this seemed to be the best starting point if you're maybe haven't used like an IDE before, if you're brand new to programming, just want to get a feel for Python and learn, the basics. This is a very, very friendly way to start. So there's this little instance right here with the numbers. As it runs this code, and it may not show it here, it may have to have like, it goes really fast. If you aren't computing something, that takes some time. But if you're ever running something like a large file, you may see that little asterisk right here, that star symbol. And it means that it's thinking, right? It's trying to process that. Sometimes we'll run into instances where maybe the code's not written the best way, maybe, I don't know, it could be another issue, but sometimes it just gets stuck on that star. What you want to do at that point under the kernel, either interrupt it or restart it. And basically that puts you, and if I restart and clear all outputs, it's going to put me back to the beginning of this file. And all you have to do is come back here and shift enter through your cells again. So I'm actually going to pull up an example workbook just to walk through and show you why that's important. Give me a second here. And I have this under my Python, getting started with Jupyter Notebook. Any questions while I have this pulling up? And if I'm missing the chat, please shout out to me.
No questions in chat.
Sounds good. All right, so this file here that I'll share afterwards, this is my getting started with Jupyter Notebook file. You can see here I have my title and some example headings, shift enter to execute on the cells. Here's what I found helpful as a beginner to Python. It helped me kind of understand why these cells are the way they are and how Python's, calling these objects and running it as a program. So you can see here where I have my variable dog named Luna, and I say print hello dog name, and it outputs Luna, right? If I change these around and I restart and clear my output, and I try doing this again, I'm going to get an error because I didn't define this variable. So a very simple fix. I'll just put this cell up here. I don't think you technically need to, but I will for the sake of confusion. It's easier, right? So now if I run that cell and define the variable and rerun this again, now it outputs hello Luna. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's again, what I found user-friendly about Jupyter Notebook. It helped me get an idea of, how the objects are interacting with each other. It also helped me, maybe I was at a point where I just wanted to make sure that I could print this string, right? Before I got into something more complex. And rather than having to start at this whole line of code and go, where's the error? Where was I not catching it? I can kind of take it in steps, right? So that's what I like about Jupyter Notebook. So some libraries relating to data science, there's three main ones, three big ones that you think of and that you hear about a lot in interviews and whatnot. And it's going to be NumPy, Pandas, and Matplotlib. So NumPy is a library works with arrays. And again, it's 50 times faster to work with array than a list in Python. So that's good to keep in mind for optimizing your data, making sure not only can you get the result that you want, but you can get the result that you want, the speed that you need it, right? Some frequently used NumPy functions are this line space one. It makes sure it generates evenly spaced samples on the x-axis, NumPy.repeat, so it repeats the elements of an array, and NumPy random. I'm sure you've seen and heard a lot. Used a lot, I know, with college classes, right? If you have to generate a random number between a min and a max, that's the one that you're going to want to use. And with all these examples, I'm using the main acronyms that you'll see. You could call this anything. I could call this dog if I wanted to, but I don't want to. I want it to be readable. And so these acronyms, like in NumPy as NP, they're frequently used by the developer community. Just makes it more readable, easier to understand if you're working with a team. So with all of these libraries, what you're going to want to do to get them to use them in Jupyter Notebook, you're going to want to import, NumPy as some sort of acronym, right? This is assuming that you have it installed already. I I won't get too in depth with that, but there's ways to install libraries. There's different ways to do it depending on if you have like a Conda package or if you're using pip. If you have any questions on that, I can at least point you to some resources I've seen. But just keep that in mind. You may have to do it from like the command terminal rather than doing it from here if you don't have that library like installed already. There's this nice help function. So if you don't know what, maybe I don't know what the random function does in NumPy. If I hit help, it'll spit out this help package. It'll tell me the description of it, a lot of documentation that I'm not going to read through. But that's something helpful in the beginning to remember that you can always do that and get the information you're looking for. Pandas. So Pandas is another Python library built on top of NumPy. It's widely used for data science, data analysis. This one's used a ton if you're doing a lot of visuals, because what you're doing is you're reading through, you can read through like CSV files or Excel files as data frames. And data frames is just another fancy way to say like tabular data, like how you're familiar with looking at an Excel table, right? It's in that data frame. So frequently used ones, again, read, CSV, head returns the first, automatically it defaults to 5, but it'll return, you can say head 10, and it'll return the top 10 rows of a data set. So that one's good. And then there's also this describe, which is interesting that we'll get into. It uses descriptive statistics of data in Pandas data frame or series. I'm sorry, did someone have a question? Oh, all right. So this example here is just importing Pandas. It's going to go ahead and read the sample data file I have of rock song data from a few different years. You know, so I'm just calling it rock data with the pandas.read CSV that we went over. And then if I want to take a look at the first 5 rows of that data, I can see it here. So we have the song title, artist name, release year, and play count. And I can already see here from my release year, I have some null values, because again, at the end of the day, it's about data science is about fully understanding that data and being able to communicate that eloquently. You know, it's taking that additional step, right? And then on the describe, if you don't include this include all, most of the time it's just going to include what's what it thinks of as like integer values, right? And you can see why down here, it does that by default for a reason. If I include all of these columns and I want to see the statistical information on like a song title, I'm really not going to get any quartile information. I don't even get like a min or a max because there's no numerical value for it to provide, right? It does provide me some information such as like the count of the songs, the number of songs with unique names, and whatnot. But in this top, from what I've seen, it's not that reliable because it's not integer, so it goes from there. Whereas the play count, so the number of times the song's been played, that's a lot more valuable, right? I can see that the maximum of times the song's been played is 142 times. I can see that when we get to the 75th percentile plus, most songs are being played like 21 times or more, right? So a little bit better of an idea of what's going on with that data if you're looking at integers. Any questions so far?
Hey, Amanda, there was a question in chat, and I think Evan helped answer it, but what's the difference between a data frame and a database?
Well, a database can contain, and if you guys already covered it, that's fine, but I think a database is much larger than a data frame. A data frame would be like your table within a database, right? Or maybe your view within a database. Because the database itself can have like, I'm trying to think of what the triggers are. Those who work in SQL in the warehouses, you can speak up, but I feel like it's maintaining like all the data and all the objects that go into managing the data, whereas this data frame is simply like those results.
Thanks, Amanda.
Yep. All right, so we're going to come back to some of the data points mentioned here off the sample data set. But the last one is Matplotlib. Again, it's another extension of the NumPy library used for data visualizations, graphical plotting. Mark, I don't know if you're on the call or not, but if you are, we were having a discussion earlier today on the Discord chat about plotting out like with line charts and the markers and whatnot. This is a library I believe that we were referring to. So it's like constantly used with that stuff. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a simple bar chart of the top 10 artists with the most songs on that data sheet. Not necessarily the most played songs, but the most in total songs on that sheet. And as you can see, the Beatles wins out at 100, followed by Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, and so on. So this is a little tutorial of what Jupyter Notebook is. Some fun things you can do with that as you're getting started with analyzing these data sets. There's certainly more you can do with it, but that's the first platform there. So before I move on to the next one, any questions on Jupyter Notebook? All right. And let me move faces here. Okay, Anaconda. So,
hey Amanda, there was one
yep.
question about whether Pandas is the same as this Python style data frame viewer.
Let me see here. So so what Pandas did was it took this CSV file, which looks just like this, except it's CSV, and it put it into a data frame so that Matplotlib would then take that data frame and put it into a visual. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Hopefully that answered the question. So Pandas kind of provides the data frame, in other words, right? So, yeah.
Exactly. If not, if anyone wants to get into anything afterwards, again, Discord, Meetup, LinkedIn, my information's out there. Be happy to walk through this together and help answer any more questions. All right. So Anaconda. Anaconda is another tool that's used widely for data science. It's actually what I used to install Python originally and access Jupyter Notebook. And I've just slowly started exploring more features with Anaconda, including like Spider IDE, which is like a lightweight IDE that mainly focuses on like data science tools. So kind of the differences between Jupyter Notebook and Spider. Jupyter Notebook, again, is more for those non-technical, maybe business users that you might be working with, where you want to show some data, but have some text describing it and what you've done. It's easy to present to, easy to export into a PI file. Easy to work with a team with it, so that's great. Spider IDE would be used maybe more for if you're working with a team of developers and you want your script to fold in neatly with like other scripts. Maybe you're doing something a bit more technical. It's like more of a traditional IDE, so that's where I see it there. It's a bit more technical. Some key features with it, I'll scroll down here, are it can clear variables automatically, provides real-time code introspection. So those of you that are more technical, more familiar with my IDEs, those may call out to you. But very simply, Spider looks like this. Again, I took our previous example with the most songs, and you can see it's displayed here quite neatly. I did add one more line of code here just to show what else it can do. And what you can do with Pandas is I did a sort by the play counts. So again, how we talked about how those numbers may not be relating to, these artists aren't necessarily relating to the top songs or whatnot. Sorting this data frame by play count shows that 142 songs actually Dream On by Aerosmith. And then it goes on from there, and then you can see some other songs at the bottom, Zero for Layla and whatnot. So this is a very standard IDE. If you've used anything like Visual Studio or whatnot, this may seem familiar. And all of this is accessible through Anaconda. Let me pull up what Anaconda looks like. This is your Anaconda Navigator when it's first installed. Some of you may be familiar with it, may have used some of the other functionality in here like Jupyter Lab, but it comes with a lot of different things. You have your command prompt, the IBM Watson Studio Clouds. Some of these, like the PyCharm, either are subscription based or whatnot. So not all of them come with the tool. Also has RStudio, but again, Spider is that free source. Jupyter Notebook's that free source if you're looking into those. And then on the resources I have, it walks through how to install this, how to get started with Anaconda, the environments, and there's lots of learning through here too. So it has quick access to documentation if you want to look into anything further. SciPy we're not going to talk about today, but I have heard of in passing, so that may be of interest. And then they also have a community as well. Okay, so community learning. Back when before I got into management, I had a supervisor, manager, mentor who told me to get rid of my yeah buts in my career. So I don't know if you guys have heard yeah buts or if you're familiar with that, but the yeah but is that thing that holds you back maybe from the next person for a position, right? So will we pick you? Yeah, but you don't have a degree. Yeah, but you don't know a second language. Yeah, but you've never used this platform, right? So it's a good thing to keep that in mind as you're growing in your career, as you're trying to add to that resume, grow those skill sets, become more valuable, right? To try to knock those out. And a great way to do that is through community learning. We've talked about our Python Discord and how we're growing that community, and obviously everyone here joining things like this today. So that's wonderful. Great to know people within the state who may work for networking opportunities and whatnot. We also have options through our GitHub, and then through a machine learning community called Kaggle, which I'll get into in a minute. So just quickly, how familiar is everyone with GitHub? Fairly familiar? I see some hands being raised. Great. So I'll be honest, you guys probably know more about GitHub than I do. It's something new that I've started checking out and trying to build a portfolio there, get some code examples up there, work with other team members. I don't know if Che is on this call or not, but he's another member of our community who actually walked me through within the past month how to connect to that. And very quickly, I'll show you what that looks like from a basic standpoint. One thing I would definitely recommend is installing GitHub Desktop because it walks you through this process. And GitHub has a lot of fancy names for different things, but the easiest way to think of it is just file sharing. It may not technically be called file sharing, but you'll hear it basically has a repository, right? And this infographic actually shows it a bit better. So GitHub is like a remote repository for code and files and like a whole package of what would be contained in a script, right? And what you can do with GitHub is you can find somebody that you want to code that you want to work on or use as a resource, and you can clone that, pull that, fetch that into your own local file so that you can work on that and have your own version of it or have your own copy of it. And then eventually you have the option to push that back out to the original repository. So you can say, hey, oh, I made some edits, I made some updates. Can you get this approved for the original file? And then that owner can approve it. And then that's how the code keeps getting generated, right? So I'll have additional links there from people who are smarter than me with how this works. If you have questions, I can at least at minimum point you in the right direction with maybe another member who can help you walk you through that beginner process. But I would definitely recommend getting started on GitHub. There's a lot of cool stuff out there, including what I just found just looking through this today. So there's obviously code and project examples, but there's also examples like this, where there's an entire Python data science handbook available for free through GitHub. So let's say I want to access this, and it's actually in the it's in the format of Jupyter Notebook. So let's say I want to get this, right? I'm just going to hit code, and I'm going to say open with GitHub Desktop, open with GitHub Desktop, and then automatically it pops up for me. So I can clone it, which basically means I'm duplicating that for my own local server. So I'm going to have access to it. And that's it. Now, if I'm just trying to move our faces here. There we go. So if I go back to here and I hit open in Visual Studio. And again,
strange
this
weapon this was.
Oh, go ahead.
Ethan,
yes.
did you have a question? I have a question.
All right.
Keep rolling.
No problem. So this is, it's opening in Visual Data Studio, I'm sorry, in Visual Studio. I could have had this open in Notebook, Jupyter Notebook or whatnot, but it gives you an idea. Now this is a text document, so it's a little bit different than usual examples. But still, I mean, this is awesome. I have this whole entire text now available to read through and play around with and whatever, just because someone threw it up on GitHub. And it's nice since it's in Jupyter Notebook format, it would actually be like interactive with those cells, as you can see defined here. So some pretty cool stuff you can do with GitHub. Again, it's something I'm still exploring. If you have questions, reach out. There's people in the community we can get you in touch with to get comfortable with that. All right, and so last but not least, before I get into the final references and resources, is going to be Kaggle. Again, this is something new that I've checked out that I'm hoping to get more familiar with within the next year. It's one of my like goal items this year. So Kaggle is actually awesome. It is a learning platform mixed with a like active community mixed with competitions. And these competitions not only are great for your resume that you can publicly say where you ranked in these, but you also, can get prizes. And there's a lot of them. You can work on teams and split them out. If I just hit this one real quick, just to show you how it works, each of these competitions has a description. It tells you how the evaluation's done. Provides the data for you to perform this activity with. There's discussion boards, there's leaderboards, you can see how you rank between people, and whatnot. So this community and this platform, this service is actually pretty cool. As I stated, they also offer courses. So if you're just getting started and you're like, well, I don't know where to start, I don't know what I'm doing. It's Jupyter Notebook based. You can push it to GitHub. So those things that we've already talked about. As you can see, I'm going to start my Intro to Machine Learning one. I've finished the Python course that they have on here. And they walk you through how to do these exercises. So they have this tutorial Titanic machine learning exercise that's straight for beginners. There's a tutorial they provide to walk you through the steps. And just to run through my code, as you can see, it's still in that Jupyter Notebook format. This is everything they provide with those learnings, right? So I was able to take this data set, again, use that describe that we talked about prior to. And this one, you can see those statistical information a bit better. So what this data set is it's taking the passengers from the Titanic and basically marking them based on survival rates to seeing, who had a better chance of survival, right? So you can see those with siblings. The more siblings you have, the higher percentage you have of surviving. You also notice that there's some age values, I think missing somewhere. Yeah, so you see there's only a count of 714 ages when there was a total of 891 passengers. So there might be some variances and gaps there in the data. So this is a good example of how to use that describe Pandas function that we mentioned to analyze your data set prior to finding that business solution. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to this platform. It's nice. You can follow people that you can do different discussions, but yeah, this is what I'm checking out and it's been helpful. So last but not least, and again, this is all going to come in those references and resources. I just have some additional links to share with everyone. Personally, my favorite boot camp that I've done is the Udemy Python boot camp. It's very thorough. You can usually catch it sometimes on sale. I think I paid less than $20 for mine. You just got to watch when Udemy has those sales and discounts, but you can get it and it lasts forever. It doesn't expire. So I think I bought this when it was on sale and I didn't use it for like a year and I came back to it. But they have a good one. This is just another text about automating the boring stuff. It's a free text for Python. There's some additional Python data science tutorials if you want to walk through those through realpython.com. It's a good resource. For those of you more interested in data analysis, business intelligence, if you're not familiar, there's this group called Maven Analytics. They also have learning resources. They also have contests every month. So I think in December, they had like a Harry Potter one. where they gave you a bunch of Harry Potter data and you could create visuals to that. And then if you shared it on LinkedIn, they pick like winners and whatnot. And again, it's just good things to build up on your resume, build your portfolio, build your brand. But Maven Analytics is pretty cool. And then these last two options are ones that I found. So for example, the rock song data set I used today, this is actually used from Google dataset search. There's also one for US government if you want government data. But this is great for if you're just, maybe you want to work on something, but you don't have any data to start with. You can really search these data sets. So if I do like crime, right? And it'll pop up all these resources for you to grab maybe some crime data. Some of it's free, some of it's public, some of it you have to sign up for subscriptions. So just be aware of that. But yeah, this was a good resource for finding data to explore. So that's about what I had to share today. If anyone has any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'm looking forward to learning with everyone, and thank you for your time.
Amanda, there's a question online if you'd be able to share your PowerPoint slides.
Yes, yeah, I'm going to on Discord, I think. If there's a way to post in a meetup, I'll work with Dan on that. But yeah, if you have the Discord link, or you can find me on LinkedIn and hit me up, I can share them there as well.
I was going to mention, I put in the comments, the W3 Schools is a good reference site. I used that forever in class and stuff.
Thanks, Andrew. Any other questions for Amanda?
Yeah, this is Carlos. So I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I've been a web developer for over 5 years. Currently studying, trying to obtain my bachelor's degree in computer science. And lately I've gotten more interested in AI or machine learning. So I would like to know if you have any recommendations on what will be next steps to kind of mix the AI machine learning technology with the web, like web development, and if there are any resources that I can follow, with data or projects that I can practice with.
Yeah, I'm sure some others in the group may have more information when it comes to like web development and data science. The one thing that I think of immediately would be like web scraping with Python, maybe. I know that's a big feature that Python can do. When I think of it too, I'm not sure if there's a way to maybe mirror that with like text analysis. I know that's a big one for companies doing like scrubbing through comments and whatnot. And there's a resource that I have with natural language processing. There's like a walkthrough step-by-step for how to semitize and lematize like words and put it into a word chart and whatnot. But I can get that to you afterwards if you'd like.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any ideas regarding data science and like web development or web-based? If you think of anything else, I'll let you know, Carlos.
Thanks a lot.
Yep.
Any other questions for Amanda, team?
There was a slide I wanted to linger on a little bit longer. Would it be a pain to go back?
No, absolutely. Which one?
The one breaking down the songs, like the statistics on the songs, like there were so few lines of code and you got like a graph out of it and a little data description and everything.
Are you talking about this one up here?
Yeah, but there was a view that had like a visual graph too.
Yep. This one down here?
Yeah. Okay. I love the simplicity of that. That's wild. It's really just.
It does it all for you.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, and you can get really fancy with this. I mean, there's ways to in Kaggle, like I said, you can find people who have done all sorts of things with their charts and whatnot. But this is the default, and again, the default, as you said, it's fairly nice. So for most things, it'll probably work.
Cool.
So I think Seema had a question as well. Hi, Seema. She was asking why do you think Python is the tool to use here and not other things like Excel, VBA, and Power? You know, I think Microsoft Power BI is their visualization software. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, well, I think it probably comes down to processing, right? So how many times have you been trying to work with something large in Excel? And then it's like got, I don't know if it's threads or what, but it just starts going and maybe you have like 32-bit version of it. You're supposed to have the 64-bit version. Then after 2 hours of trying to run this report, it just crashes. So you have to start over again, right? That's at least been my experience with Excel, depending on what type of analysis you're doing, how large that is. So Python to me seems like the go-to when it comes to purely like the optimal way to process some of that information. You're right that you can probably get away with quite a bit without having it, but it's kind of for that next step, right? If you're using something like Power BI, I know Microsoft's got a lot of great tools and resources for advanced AI machine learning. I just see it kind of as that bridge, right? So don't maybe stop the analysis that you're doing or how you're doing it currently. But it's just if you want to get maybe something that you aren't getting right now out of it, if you want to move to something a bit more automated, it's to me, again, it came down to more like performance, right? And save the time doing the simple stuff, just like that text, automate the simple things, right? And that way you can spend more of your time analyzing and going, well, what are these outliers? Why is this way? Is my data validated correctly, right? And adding that human element rather than the mundane, the monotonous stuff. Anyone else have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna ask, is there even a way to write complex queries across like a series of Excel spreadsheets? I mean, maybe there is. I've just never. I don't know. I guess a lot of the answers you're looking do what?
VBA.
You said painfully, with
Painfully?
hidden stuff
Okay.
in cells, and you don't know where it came from, right? So
Okay.
Macros.
Gotcha.
any other questions for Amanda? Anyone? Okay, thanks so much, Amanda. I think that was a really good
Thank you all.
overview of yeah, the different tools, GitHub, Kaggle, yeah, IDEs, using Jupyter. Yeah, that was really good. So thanks for sharing all that with everyone. That was I even learned a lot. So thanks, Amanda.
Thank you all.
Thanks.